I have mentioned to you before that one of the recurring themes in the book of Proverbs is words, the tongue, what we say and how we say it. And you come right into chapter 15, verse 1, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And I thought, well, here's more words about words. So here we go again, studying what Solomon has to say about words. Now, he's not the only one who has given us proverbs about words. Mark Twain says, the difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and lightning bug. There's a difference. Or as someone said, there's a difference between when I look at you, the wheels of time stand still, or your face could stop a clock. It's all about how you say things, right? Somebody said, be sure you taste your words before you spit them out. And somebody prayed, please God, make my words today sweet and tender, for tomorrow I may have to eat them. Well, as we come into Proverbs chapter 15, there are several verses in this chapter that have to do with the tongue and our words. They're all pieces of the same puzzle. They all kind of flow together. So here we go with Solomon giving us more words about words, starting in the very first verse. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The first thing Solomon says is to respond to conflict with calm reason. Respond to conflict with calm reason. We all know that a harsh word stirs up anger. You've probably been involved in conversations, or you have observed conversations where one person starts spewing and then the next person spews back, and then it just escalates. I heard of a fellow told the story. He said that his neighbors were hearing impaired, and so they always communicated in sign language. And he had become friends with them and picked up enough sign language so that he could communicate with them and could read, their conversations they were having with each other. And he said one day they were out on the porch and they were signing to each other, and as they signed, he said, I could tell they were having a fight because their gestures got bigger. And he said as they were making the gestures for the sign language, they got bigger and bigger. And he said finally one of them said in sign language, don't talk so loud, I'm not blind. But we all have that tendency to just kind of keep accelerating things, and it just stirs things up. Now, before we get into a gentle answer turns away wrath, I want to remind you, as we study the book of Proverbs and the principles Solomon lays down, I must remind you that he has already talked to us about fools and scorners or mockers. And he says those two classes of people will never listen to your words. They will never respond to instruction. They will stay angry no matter what. And so it's important for us to remember that when he says a gentle answer turns away wrath, he is in essence putting in parentheses, but remember what I said about fools and scorners. And we spent weeks talking about both of those groups of people. And one of the characteristics is they never respond to instruction. They will never listen to what anybody says. So there will be people in your life to whom a gentle answer will not turn away wrath, because they are one of those people that Solomon describes as either a fool or a scorner. So please remember that. I was talking to one of the managers at Chick-fil-A the other day, and I was ragging him about something because, there's where I eat is like when you all come to church. I have my spot where I'm supposed to eat. And he looked at me, he said, how are you doing today? I said, I'm upset. He said, why? I said, you let somebody sit in my spot. He said, well, I didn't know you were coming. I was ragging him, and he said, oh man. He said, it's not as bad as Saturday was. I said, what happened Saturday? He said, oh, there was a guy on the phone, and it didn't matter what I said. And finally, I just said, sir, is there anything I can do to make your life better for you today? Sometimes you just have those people that you're just never going to be able to satisfy. But it's important for us to understand that if we're not dealing with fools and scorners, a gentle answer turns away wrath. We know people that the longer they talk, the faster they talk, and the louder they talk. I worked with a person like that they would start off slow, and the longer they talk, the faster they talk, and the louder they got. And what happened was people would pull back from that and start to respond to the volume of what was being said rather than the words of what was being said. And then you had trouble. You know, there are people that they could be saying, and then we went to the beach, and it was the greatest day ever, and our condo was so awesome. And they keep talking, and they get louder and louder, and you think they're angry at something. And you know, there's the music of the noise that blocks out the words of what's being said. And if you've ever been in a meeting, you know, where you had a couple people like that, oh man, you could just have war over noise, not the words. And so Solomon says the challenge is take the emotion out of the situation. A gentle answer turns away wrath. What and you know, we know you've got that verse memorized. You maybe didn't know it was in the Bible, but we all know a gentle answer turns away wrath. So I had to try to figure out what a gentle answer was. And it's a word that has several different meanings. It is the opposite of a sharp word, and we know what a sharp word is. It's the opposite of that. It has with it the idea of calm and soothing and gentle in tone. And maybe you've been in a situation where, you know, that noise was going on and somebody was just able just very calmly and very kindly kind of diffuse the situation. But it's more than that. The word gentle or gentle answer means a conciliatory word or an answer that brings reason. That's why I said respond to conflict with calm reason. What it is taking the emotion out of the situation. That's hard to do. One of the most difficult skills to learn, at least for me in communication, is to leave the emotion out of it and leave the personality out of it. You know, it's one thing to say, well, this idea won't work because of this and this and this. It's another thing to say, you are such an idiot and you don't know anything about this place and you're done, right? Because they're responding to your attitude rather than the words. And so stick to the facts in a calm, gentle tone. And when conflict starts to escalate, respond to it with calm reason. It's a challenge. Verse 2. The tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. Well, it's pretty easy to understand the second part. We all know fools whose mouths gush folly. But what in the world does it mean the tongue of the wise adorns knowledge? Well, I studied that phrase because it was weird to me, and what it means is this. Wise people know how to talk in such a way that people receive what they're saying. And so that's the second principle. Communicate in such a way that your knowledge is received. The New American Standard says the tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable. Maybe you've run into some people that they know things, but people don't listen to them because they haven't learned how to communicate their knowledge appropriately. You know, and they come across bombastically, or they come across arrogantly, or they come across in a sense of I'm superior to you because I know this and you don't. And so people don't respond to the knowledge because of the way it's being communicated. And so what he says is make sure that as you communicate your knowledge, you're doing it in such a way so that people will receive it, that they will be open to it. And the rest of the verses that follow here in Proverbs 15 really kind of flow from that. And what's interesting is verse 3. The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good. Now, we know that the book of Proverbs is a collection, especially from about chapter 9 on, of sometimes unrelated proverbs. But everything else in the first part of chapter 15 have to do with your words, and primarily have to do with your words in a situation of conflict or disagreement. And so why would he put verse 3 right in the middle of talking about your words? And I think what he's saying is this: it might not work out immediately, but God has the last word. The eyes of the Lord are everywhere. He keeps watch on the wicked and the good. It's what 2 Chronicles chapter 16 verse 9 says: the eyes of the Lord move to and fro throughout the earth, so that he may strongly support those whose hearts are completely his. So I think what he's saying there is, a gentle answer is going to turn away wrath, and make sure you communicate in such a way that people will respond to you, but it might not happen right away. And it may take a little while before it all falls into place. But please know that God is watching, and he's going to have the last word. And you stay true to him, and he's going to work things out. Verse 4. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Have you ever watched a conversation and seen the visible signs of somebody's spirit being crushed? I mean, you can just see the look on their face. That the words that are being spoken to them are so hurtful that it just crushes their spirit. We don't want to be that kind of person. We want to be a soothing tongue that is a tree of life. Use your words to bring life. I saw something the other day that says, how do you know if somebody needs a word of encouragement? They're breathing. That's pretty right. We all need words of encouragement. Use your words to bring life. A soothing tongue. The King James says a wholesome tongue. It can literally be translated a tongue of healing. Oh, that's incredible. That our words can actually heal. They can bring life. Your speech can be therapeutic. Or your speech can be whatever the opposite of therapeutic is. It can be damaging. Have you ever left your house feeling pretty good? And somebody said to you, man, you don't look like you're feeling very good today. And all of a sudden you weren't feeling quite so good? And then the next person said, are you okay today? And and before long it's just, apparently I'm not. But then sometimes you leave and you really don't feel all that great. And somebody says, man, you're looking good today. And you kind of spruce up a little bit. And somebody else says, man, I appreciate you. And you spruce up a little bit. That's the words of life. The words that soothe. The words that bring healing. It's that verse that I've talked to you about a couple of times during this series from Isaiah chapter 50, verse 4. The sovereign Lord has given me a well-instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. He awakens me and awakens me to listen like one being instructed. That well-instructed tongue to sustain, to encourage the weary. You run into people every day in your life who are just weary. The word means worn out, exhausted. What we need to do is listen. He awakens my ear to listen. Lord, what can I say today to bring encouragement? What can I say today to where my words bring life? What can I say today that are healing words and encouraging words? The prayer of David in Proverbs 19, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. Paul in Colossians chapter 4, verse 6, let your speech be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. In Proverbs chapter 16, verse 1, to humans belong the plans of the heart, but from the Lord comes the proper answer of the tongue. Lord, help us today give the proper answers. Use your words to bring life. Verse 7. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, but the hearts of fools are not upright. The lips of the wise spread knowledge. Live with such credibility that people will listen to you. You can't spread knowledge if nobody's listening. Live with such credibility that people will listen to you. I think everybody in this room is old enough to remember the old E.F. Hutton commercials. When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. Let's be the kind of people that when we talk, people listen. Words that spread knowledge, words that spread understanding, and our lives back them up. Was it last week we talked about Naaman's servant girl? Here's Naaman with leprosy. And this teenage girl from Israel says to Mrs. Naaman, if you could get Naaman to Samaria, there's a prophet there who would heal him. And because of her credibility, they listened to what she said. And not only was Naaman healed, he became a follower of the God of Israel. Live with such credibility that when you speak, people listen to what you have to say because they know that your life backs it up. Verse 23, another word about words. A person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good is a timely word. Find joy by speaking the right words at the right time. A person finds joy in giving an apt reply, a timely word. It is so important for us to understand that not only what we say is important and how we say it, but when we say it. I remember talking to somebody, and I don't even remember the context or the environment or the situation or whatever, and they were referring to something that somebody had said to them that really caused them to understand and change something about them. And we had the kind of relationship where I could say to them, and I did, but they've been telling you that for months. And the person kind of grinned and said, yeah, but I wasn't ready to listen. You know, it's so important. We talk about that when we talk about sharing our faith, that it's not just what you say, it's when you say it. Because there are times when people are not ready to hear. There are other times when they're ready. And it's, Lord, help me to know not only what to say and how to say it, so that it'll be a gentle answer and so it'll be reacted to properly, but help me to know when. Help me to know the timing to say it. Proverbs 25:11, like apples of gold in settings of silver is a word spoken in right circumstances. Lord, help me to say the right thing in the right way at the right time. Verse 26. The Lord detests the thoughts of the wicked, but gracious words are pure in his sight. That just basically says, please God with your words. We could have added a verse to the chorus we sang today. We said, in my words, Lord, be glorified. Praise God with our words. Please him with our words. Let the words of our mouth be acceptable in his sight. And then we're going to sit for our closing moments in verse 28. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. We've all been around that. But the heart of the righteous weighs its answers. The principle there is think first, then speak, right? Because it is the quality of our words, not the quantity, that matter. Think before you speak. The word weigh there. The righteous man, the good man, weighs his answers. Mean to meditate on them, to consider, but it also means to imagine. And that's kind of interesting. Imagine your words. And I think what Solomon is saying there is stop and think about the impact that those words are going to have. Imagine how it's going to be heard by that person. Imagine the damage it's going to do to them, Imagine the damage it might do to your relationship. Have you ever just really, really wanted to say something to somebody, but you were wise enough to stop and think first and say, it's going to feel good to say this, but oh my, there's going to be repercussions, and there are going to be consequences, and I really don't need those right now. Think first. Imagine, if I say this, it's going to hurt them. One of the things I used to, when I was doing family life teaching and things like that, when we were talking about communication, we all know our spouse's hot buttons. We all know the things that if we want to win a fight, we know what to say. And it's over. But a lot of other things are over too. And the damage is done. And so part of communicating appropriately is don't go after that. Don't hit the hot buttons. Don't say the things that are hurtful and harmful. Think first before you speak. And think through what the consequences may be of those words. So I was mulling on this. Think before you speak. And I must have just typed that into the search engine. And I found something online that was called How to Think Before Speaking. It was like it wasn't Wikipedia, but it was like WikiHow or something other. I don't even know what that is. And there was no author assigned to it, so I can't give anybody credit for it. But it's a very thorough and I believe thoughtful process of how to think before speaking. And I just stuck the main points there. You can find it online. He says, first, observe yourself. In other words, think back on those times where you said something that got you into trouble, or you said something and said, man, I wish I hadn't said that, or that really wasn't me, or I didn't mean it the way it came out, and try to find a pattern. Is it just with certain people? Is it in certain situations? Is it in a particular thing where you're not comfortable? Learn what causes you to maybe say things that you shouldn't say. And then recognize when you're in that situation. Be observant that, this is one of those times. And I need to be careful. I have learned through the years with my blood sugar issues that if I can feel my blood sugar getting low, I just need to be really, really careful not to say much of anything because it's going to come out wrong. And so you got to be careful. Recognize when you're in that situation that, all right, this is one of those situations where in the past I have said things I should not have said. Pay attention. Danger, Will Robinson, or whatever. Pay attention. I'm at a risky spot right here. And then observe the conversation. Pay attention to what's being said, and don't focus on the answer you're going to give. Just pay attention to what's being said. One of the things that kills communication faster than anything else is when you're not really listening to the other person. You're just trying to formulate your answer. I had a boss like that one time that no matter what you went to this boss for, you could tell. You could see it in their eyes. They were not listening to what you were saying. They were going through their Rolodex to, here is the corporate answer to this. And there was no reaction to what you were saying. It was like, yes, but, and then there was this memorized line came out. Well, you need to pay attention. If you're going to communicate appropriately, actually listen to what's being said and observe the people. How are people communicating? If things are getting heated, maybe it's that time for that gentle answer. Listen to people. There are people that are very straight bottom line people, and you can communicate to them bottom line. There are other people that want to tell a story, and if you want to get them to listen to you, you need to tell a story. Observe how the people are communicating, and then once the situation is there, start to think about how you can say what you need to say so that it has a positive impact. Formulate your responses. Okay, now if I put it this way, it's going to come across like this. My purpose in communicating is not showing off. My purpose in communicating is so they will listen. And in this article that I found, this was an incredible statement. Now, we all know that it's true. but I'd never really seen it phrased like this. Communication is primarily a function of the recipient, the listener. So you have to communicate based on the listener, right? Because different people react in different ways, and the key in communicating to somebody is finding out how they communicate so that they'll listen to what you have to say, which is one of the challenges of preaching or teaching, is everybody in the room responds differently. Some people want to hear a story. Don't tell me a story. Tell me 1, 2, 3, 4. Other people say, don't tell me 1, 2, 3, 4. Tell me a story. And so what do you do as a preacher or a teacher or anybody speaking to a group of people? And this is the incredible thing about what I get to do, is that the Bible says we're laborers together with God. And in a situation like this, the Holy Spirit takes my words and tweaks them so that you hear them the way you need to hear them. I've told you before, I've had people come up to me after church and say, man, what you said about such and such really was what I needed to hear. I'd never said it. But they were so adamant, yes you did, that I went back and listened to the sermon tape. I didn't say it, but they heard it, because the Holy Spirit takes the words. That's why I try to pray every week, Lord, let each of us get from you today what we need personally from this time together. Because we each need something different. I can't meet, well, maybe I could in a group like this. I could take the time to say, okay, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? But God knows. And He's able to take the words, the songs, the music, the communication, the conversation, and by the time it gets to you, He has tweaked that and formed it in such a way that it's exactly what you need to hear. That's incredible. Then consider the information. And they came up with an acronym called ANATE. Effective, necessary, accurate, timely, and appropriate. It's kind of what Solomon says in Proverbs 15. Make sure that what you want to say is going to be effective, that it's necessary, that it's accurate, that it's timely, the right time, that it's appropriate, the right way. Because as the person who wrote this article said, you want what you say to have impact, not just make noise. And then gauge the reaction. Make sure that people are responding appropriately. I've told you before, I think, and you can ask her privately after the service, not while the video is running, but I think I've learned better to communicate with Donna. Because earlier in our marriage, we would be having a discussion, and I would say, now what I hear you saying is this, is that right? And she'd look at me like I have two heads. No, that's not what I said at all. But it's what I heard. And because don't you sit there looking so pious at me, you know that you've been in situations with people where you were convinced that's what they said, and so you responded to what you heard, but it wasn't what they said. And then they responded to what you heard, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So in a communication, gauge the reaction. And it's good every once in a while to stop and say, no, wait a minute, is this what you're saying? I was in a meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and two people were going at it. They were both saying the same thing, basically, but it was one of those where this accelerated and this accelerated. Yeah, but it's our... Well, yes, I know that, but also this. And it's like, well, I agree with so-and-so. And it's, forget it, And when you get in a situation like that, if you're in a position where you can do it, you say, time out. Is this what you're saying? Is this what you're saying? Is there common ground here? Gauge the reaction to what's being said. And then be thoughtful in your tone. And we already talked about that. How you say it. And as I was drifting off to sleep early this morning, I know that somewhere I have the ratio, the proportions of communication, and how much of what you communicate is your words, and how much is your body language and the tone of your voice and how you say it. And the least important part of communication is the actual words. because people are responding to the tone of your voice and how you're saying it and your body language. A guy told me one time that he was in a conversation with somebody. Now, he was very proud of this. So I was in a conversation with somebody, and they said, "Man, I have never been cussed out like you just cussed me out." And he said, I looked at him and said, "I did not use one cuss word." And the guy said, "Huh, you're right." But he felt like he'd been cussed out because of the manner in which the conversation had happened. So be thoughtful about your tone. And then when it's time, communicate. And then observe how you did. Kind of evaluate when it's all over. Say, am I doing better? Am I doing better at not saying the wrong thing? Am I doing better at how I present things? Am I learning to think before I speak? It's a whole lot more fun just to fly off the handle, right? It's a whole lot more fun to be a fool and gush evil. But what God is glorified with is if we take the time to weigh our answer and please God by our words. That verse, that our words can be a tree of life, that our words can bring encouragement, that our words can soothe, that our words can heal. That's what this world needs. 2 verses to sum up this morning. Solomon said in Proverbs 16:1, to humans belong the plans of the heart, but from the Lord comes the proper answer of the tongue. His daddy prayed, Psalm 19, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. And that's our prayer today, Father, that the thoughts of our hearts and our minds and the words that we speak would be pleasing and acceptable, first of all, to you, and then that they would bring life and encouragement and uplifting to the people to whom we speak. May our words reflect your love. May our words bring encouragement and joy. May our words be backed up by our lives, so that when we have the opportunity to share knowledge, people will listen to what we have to say because they see our lives. May our words glorify you, I pray. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine on you and give you his peace, now and evermore. Amen. God bless you. Thanks for coming out today. You're dismissed.